aren't you? Oh, it's nothing to Pemberley, I know. But I must settle somewhere. Have I your approval? You'll find the society something savage. Country manners, I think they're charming.
Country manners lie at the heart of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, and the BBC's recent adaptation thrilled millions with its reconstruction of the modes and manners of 200 years ago. So, how did they do that? Well, for a start, they knew authentic clothes create authentic movement.
After we've seen the horses galloping away in the distance, we see Lizzie watching them from afar, and she, if you like, excited by the look of the horses, she runs down a hill. She actually runs because she can. There are no constraints on the way she's dressed.
There's such an emphasis on costume in the production because director Simon Langton knew that clothes tell us about characters even before they speak. It starts with the colours.
What one was trying to look for was a light, creamy, white, almost virginal, if you like, colours from the daughters. Nothing too elaborate. They weren't, in fact, terribly rich. Nothing too definite, nothing too heavily patterned.
Another frill there.
Costume designer Dinah Cullen kitted out the cast in costumes that were authentic in every detail. How did she do that?
Every garment had to be made. The fabric had to be found, either printed or it had to be bought, had to be dyed, it had to be treated in some way if it wasn't quite right. And that's a huge undertaking. And we actually, in the end, made 186 dresses.
And each costume reflected the status of its wearer.
This dress that Lucy is wearing is typical of the dresses of the period, that it's very high-waisted, it's made out of a very fine muslin, it's printed muslin, so it's probably a washing frock, which weren't worn for very high-class visiting. It has a fill-in, which was worn for day wear, which allowed the dress to have various different looks to it. The bonnet and the little inner lace cap was worn by married ladies always throughout the day. The back of the dress, as you can see, is very high as well, with small narrow back, and the fullness to allow you to run and walk and everything is all here.
Oh, brother! We are all ruined forever!
The result of Dinah's work, totally convincing costumes. So convincing, they really helped the actors get into the parts.
Sister, calm down. Nothing.
I find the whole thing just wonderful and fascinating. Just the clothes, the fact that the women are wearing corsets, but weren't corseted in that restrictive way that the Victorians sort of, suddenly kind of had these pinch waists and all that, which was a nightmare.
So, Mr. had gone to town?
In fact, in Jane Austen's period, the costumes were very flattering for women, very, very pretty. I think everyone kind of looked pretty good at all their costumes.
Mary, the barley mow.
The flavour of the times was particularly well evoked by the subtle and graceful patterns of the authentic period dances. The actors were trained in these by choreographer Jane Gibson, who specialises in historical dance.
Walk and walk, walk. The importance of dance to their interrelationships and how they could meet each other and greet each other in dance, and how often dance is mentioned. You see, it's really a central part of their lives. They were not allowed really to be unchaperoned, the unmarried girls. They had to always be with a chaperone, whereas when they were up on the dance floor, they could spend a long time with one man, dancing with him.
Some 15 separate dances were rehearsed over and over before filming could begin. Jane spent days coaching us through the steps. This was vital. The actors had to get it right, as key parts of the plot take place during the dance, and one wrong step could ruin an entire ballroom scene.
I found the dancing very difficult, I have to say. At drama school, I always hated it. I was always the person right at the back of the queue, and of course, consequently, the dance teacher used to single me out for special attention.
Okay, we bumped into each other.
The dancing of the period is completely different to what we would now recognise as being steps.
You and your daughters.
And in those days, you had to watch your step off the floor too. Break the social rules, and you were in trouble.
So we spent a lot of time on the reverences, which are the movements of courtesy that were made at this time. And you lower the top of the body, you give them that courtesy, and you recover As they came into a room, when they left a room, when they met each other, the beginning of a dance and the end of a dance, and mutually they would reverence.
And so, after months of painstaking work, Jane Austen's characters finally leapt from the pages of her novel to take on a brilliant life of their own, and millions were moved by this classic love story.
With someone as wonderful as Jane Austen, it deserves to be seen over and over again. If it's good, it will stand the test of time and people will always be fascinated.
And there's one fashion at least that's never changed.